Since I didn't finish it.
There was a reason why it came in at number 13. It had to be on the list, but that's why that came in that way. But really what I wanted to do is ask George his own highlights of working on these various projects. So when it came down to Infinity Gauntlet, from your perspective, what was it that you really appreciated about working on that project?
Well, I mean, the reason I even took on the project was that I wanted to draw as many characters at Marvel that I could. You know? Unfortunately, I also chose to do that at the same time. I had contracted to write War of the Gods over at DC, and it ended up being way too much work. And there was a slight touch of disappointment when Jim finally took the superheroes into outer space where they faced Thanos for the next couple of issues. I said, that means, but no more superheroes are going to be able to show up in this story now. This is it. This is the cast now. You know? I wanted more characters to draw. But either way, I had to bow out. And quite honestly, I always thought that the book should have been done by Ron Lim to begin with. Ron Lim set up everything with Jim Starlin, and he did the Thanos quest and everything else. So like it seemed only just that that Ron should. Because Ron was only supposed to replace me for the last half of issue 4, because I was falling far behind. And when they said Ron can fill in and you can jump on to issue 5, I said, why don't you just let Ron finish the series? And I'm glad the ink Ron's covers just to show that not any petulance on my part. But I just realized that I'm not going to be able to keep that book on schedule. And Ron managed to do what I couldn't do. So that's why of course. It always has that asterisk, one of George Perez highlighted, but it's also the series that George Perez couldn't finish. And in hindsight, how many people even remember War of the Gods? And look at how much money Infinity Gauntlet is making.
that actually, as a follow-up, what did you, the last 2 Avengers movies, which...
I haven't seen the last one.
Oh, you haven't seen the latest? No spoilers.
The last one I saw was Infinity Wars. And I mean, the thing is, I was grateful, and I kept thinking of Jim the entire time. I said, Jim, good for you. I just love that the Geico Gecko was wearing the Infinity Gauntlet in the commercial. I'm so happy for him. And the only thing, just from on my point of view, as a visual artist who's drawn these characters, I wish they weren't so ashamed of drawing the characters in costume. That everyone, including Captain America, is wearing black. I said, it's a vocal disconnect for me. And that's the only thing I lament, that a lot of superheroes movies are very dark, and by making them all wear black, even darker. The fact that I can't tell one from another. Yes, Black Panther, Black Widow, you've got characters wearing black, but Captain America wearing black and without a mask, and not even his own shield in Infinity War.
Then you need to see the new one.
Oh, good.
That's the only spoiler I'll give.
Yeah, I mean, I get invited to all the premieres and everything else, but it's like at this point, I don't want to fly all the way to California just to see a movie. So I wait until the furor dies out of it.
Now, number 12 on the list, and when we put this out there, a lot of readers were saying, well, how could this be so low? And the point is that how much great material was still to come. But number 12 on the list was the Fantastic Four.
Well, I think I enjoyed, since I grew up, obviously, with all the Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, Dick Ayers, all those great artists. So getting a chance to draw Fantastic Four was pure luck. I was working at that point as the assistant to Rich Buckler, who's the artist on Fantastic Four, and I was helping him on what would have been the Fantastic Four annual. And then Rich fell so far behind and they canceled the annuals at that point. So that the annual with extra artwork drawn by me became my first 2 issues of Fantastic Four, issues 164 and 165. And stylistically, I can see like some pages I had to add to the book, because again, I had to put it up, beef it up so that it fills up 2 issues instead of 1 annual. Plus, I had to draw a new splash page, because of course it was a continuous story in the annual. And so I drew some of that stuff almost a year after I had drawn the earlier pages, and I could see the stylistic difference. But I benefited, and it was wonderful seeing him again at this convention by being inked by Joe Simmons, who obviously was the defining inker on Fantastic Four. So he made me look a heck of a lot better. And because of Fantastic Four, when Stan Lee saw my first issue of Fantastic Four, I got a phone call from his secretary saying, Stan Lee would like to see you. He did not recognize the name. on the credits, there was my first issue. He expected it was either Buscema or Romita, compliment in itself, and of course, a credit to Joe Sinnott. And that was the first time that Stan and I ever sat down together. He gave me my first raise. And to his dying days, Stan and I, he always remembered, even though I physically changed a good deal. But Stan gave me the greatest compliment in my life. I will always cherish it. During one of our last conventions we appeared together, he said, obviously I love comics. I love doing it. I'm very, very lucky to play in a sandbox that I've wanted to play since I was a child. And here I am. I'm going to be 65 next month, and I still feel like the youngest person in the room. And Stan said, that enthusiasm, the way you treat the fans, the way you regard, and that you're still a fan, that's what I want the fans to always see when they meet a comic professional. The way what Stan has been trying to do, and has done, all his career, and he said, you're like my nephew. That compliment in itself, it was no criticism of my work, nothing could ever match that one compliment from Stanley. It's like being a Catholic being anointed by the Pope. And when he died, I cried. And then I said goodbye to my Uncle Stan. But it's like, but that's what will always hold a special place in my heart, because that's when Stan welcomed me into the comic field, and he said, as long as I'm alive, I will always work. You will always work. And his one lamentation, because he always joked about it every time we saw each other. Why haven't we worked together? Why haven't we worked together? I mean, he did dialogue, a Silver Surfer story I drew, a Christmas story called Hark the Herald. And, but we had a chance. We were going to work together when Stan started doing some stuff at DC. Finally going to work together. But Stan was so late, I had to get other work. So I'm going to tell Stan the reason I didn't get to work. Stan, you missed the deadline.
That's great. Actually,